Greetings, friend. How are you doing today? I have two questions for you today. First question: are you an action taker? Second question: have you ever seen the people, a musician or aspiring musicians, I suppose, who play music? They actually do play music. They play trumpet or sometimes guitar or something like on the side of the street. An aspiring musicians typically that play music on the side of the street. I had this experience a few years back. It was at one of the beach that I frequented. I went to the beach from time to time, and it was on a pier or something, and there is this musician, and I could hear the musicians playing the instrument, and it was really nice. It was actually was like I was like, wow, this guy is really good. It's the melodies goes up and the melody going on, and I was like, this is really great. Wonder why wonder why he's playing on the pier. It was one of the pier. He was playing on the beach instead of like. Thank you for joining me, friend. Instead of playing in an opera house or something, because it sounds like very talented. And then I came to close to this person, and I saw, the way that he moved and everything. It was like, wow, this is somebody you would see like on in an orchestra. It's super impressive to see and to hear it. And then I listened to it, and after a while, I keep listening, and I kind of noticed like something is missing. And for a moment, I'm not a musician. So I'm not a music teacher. I'm not even that experienced in music. But I listen to a lot of music. So for a moment, I was like, I couldn't figure out what it is. The music is really nice. He played very well, the tone and everything. But thank you for joining me, friend. But something just kind of off, something missing. And I keep trying to figure out, and I finally identify that this musician, even though he play his instrument well and the way he move his body and everything, there is mostly just the tone is just it keep going and 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 going. And there was no pause. There was no pause in him playing. It goes and it goes up and down, but it kept going and going and going and going, and there was no pause. And after a while, even though it was a nice melody, you kind of get tired. Your mind and your ears and everything is kind of get tired, and the same thing. And then I noticed, and then I start looking around because I like people watching and I like to observe people. But I noticed that I just start looking around, and I noticed people come gather, and they were like, wow, it's very nice. And I hear people saying nice. And then after a while, they kind of like have this dazed look. People that come watch this person has this kind of dazed look, and then everybody leave, and kind of like having this almost like a look like, what's that all about, but there was no pause. It just keep going, even though it's the melody keep going and up and down. It would just like, keep going and going and going, and I stand in that spot. I haven't have time, so I stand in that spot for like some 15 minutes or some, and it just keep going. And so and that is actually the way life is. I've been sharing with this book here, The Greatest Salesman in the World, on how by Mandino, on how to become successful in our life. And one of the tools that he shares is, I will act now. And nowadays, we have a lot of action takers. I asked if you are an action taker, and I was a very avid. I have what people are very type A personalities. So I am a go getter. And at some point in my life, I kept going and going and going and going and going and going and going. And I never took nap. I don't stop. I just keep going. And my former husband, bless his heart, from time to time, it's like, why don't you slow down? And then I would tell him back then, oh, you just unmotivated, you just whatever, you just lazy. I mean, I didn't use the word lazy. I don't know well enough not to tell him he was lazy, but I was like, no, I'm just an action taker, I'm just an achiever, forgetting that this very person that I said unmotivated, that he's just not an action taker and so forth. Whenever he say, why don't we just slow down and so forth, why don't you just take a break, why don't you just sit and enjoy the afternoon. And you see where was the problem in the marriage? And I was like, but it's good to take action. I'm just a busy person and so forth. And forgetting, as I said to him back then, you're just not motivated, and this, and why don't you this, why don't you need to be more driven. I forgot this very person has actually taken himself out of the ghetto. My former husband grew up in the ghetto and managed with his own two hands, with no support from his parents or his family. He managed to receive funding, he worked through school, and on and on and on, that he had two advanced degrees and became, at quite a young age, by the mid 30s, a high level executive. You see where there was a problem with my perceptions back then. So it was like I just keep going and going, and that was actually what's happening with the same musicians, where we just keep going and going and going, and we're staying busy. But staying busy, of Mandino in his tools here says, I will act now. But by nowadays, there are actually so many people, so many gurus and so many coaches telling us, as well as if you live at least in the Western country, particularly in the United States, people seems to value action so much that everybody like to be busy and feel good on being busy. But being busy does not mean being productive. There is a big difference being busy and being productive. Sometimes it is a whole lot more productive, actually, just like when you are playing music, to be able to pause and to just stop. And the same thing with us. If you are an action taker, that's super awesome. That's wonderful, and I'm very happy for you. But do you pause? Because in that quiet time is actually when a lot of time we receive intuitions. In the quiet time is when we repress. It's like when you hear music and there is a pause, is when actually you allow the audience to refresh. And so in that quiet time is when apparently now I realize that, but not something I didn't realize back then when I was married. But in the quiet time is actually when we are able to receive, when we are able to just allow our energy to flow. It's almost like if you go push, 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 very soon you will wear out, right? We will wear out if you keep pushing. Even if we just keep pulling and doing, very soon we will wear out, and then we are not going to be as productive. And not only that, we also, when we are busy and we keep running, when we're going to take a breath, when we are going to allow things to inhale. And so Mandino, in his tools here, he says, I will act now. And I would say, given the modern day and age where everybody strives to be busy, to be highly productive, one of the things that we want to do is to stop acting. To stop acting from time to time. And the other thing is also to want to remember that all our actions is effective and efficient. If all our action is effective and efficient, it will allow us to stop acting. My sweetheart now is a highly productive person, a highly productive, highly accomplished person. And he actually has a method where he is extremely efficient, extremely productive, during the week. And then he actually blocked completely everything out for a day and a half where there is no work allowed, nothing allowed, just chill. And unless there is an emergency, unless there's a major emergency, nothing allowed, no work allowed. And he just relax, stop, and tune in. It doesn't matter how high the stack of paper is in his office, how many of his staff member and his company is calling and this and that. He just stop, refresh, rejuvenate, and he is he's extremely successful, more successful than many people that I know. And so it's the questions I invite you to explore tonight is: are you highly productive? Or are you an action taker? And if you are, when was the last time you actually tell yourself to just stop? And then when was the last time you are busy but not productive? Sometimes it's very sneaky. Sometimes it's a very sneaky thing to us where we might be busy but we're not necessarily productive. And sometimes we just keep one after another task that we just keep running and keep going. And then we are actually end up being busy but not productive. And with that happen, then we want to see, is there something we can just stop doing? Is there something we can just delegate to somebody else? And when is it, how much time do you carve for yourself to just pause, just push the pause button and say, okay, that's it. That's at this time of the evening, at this time of the night. And this is particularly with people who are entrepreneurs. A lot of time entrepreneurs just keep going and going and going and going and going because this is need to be done, that's need to be done, and all these things and things to be taken care. So I invite you to just allow ourselves to pause, and from time to time, in addition to taking actions, to remember that it is when we are still is when we are able to receive and to relax and to allow more flow into our life. And actually, since I learned in my own experience, and I see many people, since I learned to pause and not just keep busy all the time, I'm still very highly driven and highly motivated person. But I actually learned to pause, to just stop. I learned that to become a lot more productive, not just busy, but actually productive. So I invite you to join me. This is for those of us in the United States, at least this is a holiday weekend coming, and just make sure that among your plan, and even if your plan include fun, to just perhaps, if you like to allow yourself time to just pause and not do much of anything, to just not have a lot of things going on, to just be. And please share in the comment below if you have a plan to just pause. And that's pause even include not going to the barbecue or trying to fix things in the house and all these things. Just pause, just be, just sit there. And perhaps if you could do nothing, perhaps take a nap. When was the last time you take a nap? And then please share in the comment below if you have any feedback. And I thank you very, very much for joining me this evening. Feel welcome to share this video if you'd like to. And I see that you will have a wonderful, wonderful evening, wonderful, wonderful weekend. Remembering that to also, in addition to being productive, in addition to being taking actions, in addition to being busy having fun, to also allow yourself time to just pause, if that feels right to you, to just be. And I thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to see you again very, very soon.